Good afternoon. So I received a new conversion cylinder, and here's what that's kind of all about. Now, a while back, you can see I have two of my longest Remingtons, meaning I've got an 18-inch barreled carbine and my 12-inch what they call the Buffalo model steel frame. Now, I made it clear that as far as Remington goes, for them to come out with this particular revolver, and it's going to take me a minute to get it out of here because I put it kind of on purpose. When it comes to this particular revolver, I think this revolver was a marketing nightmare, really kind of a, for lack of a better word, a moronic move at the time. This particular carbine is a replica of a revolver that never reached popularity, and if anything, it's more popular today than it ever was in the day. Now, the reason I say that is it came out roughly May of 1865. And when you think about May of 1865, by that time you already had rim-fired lever actions such as the Henry. You've already had the introduction of the metallic cartridge. Whether it was center fire, rim fire, doesn't at this point matter. You could see that the trend was changing. So to come out with a revolving carbine that was capped, percussion cap, at that particular time was old news as far as I was concerned. The second thing about it is ergonomically, I've said this a million times, so I'm repeating myself on this one, but ergonomically, this is one of the most uncomfortable, quote-unquote, carbines I've ever come across. And when I say uncomfortable, I'm not just referring of this. I mean, we can get around this somewhat, but here's the other thing. You don't ever, never ever want to accidentally forget your hearing protection, because this thing will ring your bell. Two, the spatter from the percussion cap and the black powder and everything, you better have safety glasses on. So the reason I'm talking about that is, and I've mentioned this before, but a young lady by the name of Joni Kennedy, who had a small channel called Ruger Old Army Girl, led me in a direction on this that I had never ever even thought of. And I want to set this down for a little bit, where she and her Ruger Old Army was putting 50 grain charges in that Ruger. And knowing that the Remington cylinder and a Ruger cylinder capacity wise was not a lot different, I decided that I wanted to see if I could put, based on what she was running, a truly good hunting load through this particular weapon. So I bought the weapon just to try it. With an 18-inch barrel, and what she was testing it with it told me that it worked. I saw it work, but I questioned the 50 grain charge that she was using, whether she was getting a complete burn or not. So I wanted to assure that I would get a complete burn. And her charge was specifically a Pyrodex 50 grain 45 caliber pellet, rifle pellet. In other words, a 2F equivalent. And she was putting in there the 4.57 round ball. Now, that in mind, I was already developing shorter bullets, and a 4.57 round ball at 148 grains, thereabouts, give or take, got me to thinking about 165 and the 190 grain bullets. Now, the 165 grain I have is a .40. I'm sorry, I'm hesitating, but .40 in length, which means it's actually shorter for a heavier weight than the round ball is. And then my 190 grain overall length is a .46, so basically 3/1000 of an inch longer than a 4.57 round ball. Now, the difference between what I did and what Miss Kennedy did is I went 777. Now here's a 777 45 caliber bullet. And the one thing that immediately I was going to test was you got a great big hole there, or what I call a great big hole there, or a void. And my first thought was, can I fill that? And the answer is yes. But to top it all off, once I tested these pellets in a 44 caliber or 45 caliber cap and ball revolver, they also was sloppy in here. So I found really quickly that I could fill that gap right to the top with 3F 777. Gave it a boost, and getting that 2F equivalent lit up even faster, or at least in up here. And with filtering it and shaking it in, I was able to get 54 or 4 additional grains in there, filtered around and filling in the gap of that hole. Now, 44 grains of triple F is actually quite a boost in your ignition system for something that is a little bit more finicky at getting started. So, being that my other bullet was shorter, and, oh, by the way, when I got done filling the cylinder, it barely cleared the forcing cone. It just barely would squeak by. That was right to it. So with the 165 grain, I was able to add an additional 6 grains of powder for a total of 60 grains. Now, here's what we learned from it. And matter of fact, I think I did a video on it. Is I did a couple of test cylinders, both with 90 grain and the 165 grain, and the revolver held up to it. I did this at a distance because I was expecting who knows what, because that was way beyond any recommended load for this in the black powder world. And both cylinders held up. So I did an additional cylinder in which I wanted to test fire specifically to get a truer idea where the point of impact was on it, so I could get it across the chronograph. In that case, I ran both one 195 grain and one, or 190 grain and one 165 grain to get a feel for that, and then turned around and I put the rest of them 165 grains across the chronograph. So we got a velocity, and I can't give you the exact average, but one was just barely under 1,500 feet per second, and all the rest of them was a touch over 1,500. So successfully, this would make a decent little hunting carbine based on the velocities and energy levels that was coming out of here. However, I don't know about you guys, but I will never, ever hunt with this particular weapon. If I had a 18-inch barrel sitting here like this, or a 16-inch barrel, I'd have a better chance of hunting with this than I ever will with this, because if I'm going to pack my rifle, and I have this bad habit, I've got more than one rifle, but I always refer back to the one that has served me the best. And I don't need to tell you which one that is, but the next thing I'm going to say is, I don't know about you guys, but I don't hunt with hearing protection. It's just who I am. I just don't walk around with hearing protection. I want to hear my surroundings all the way around me. So I accidentally forgot to take hearing protection on one of these rounds, and I could only handle 2 rounds at this distance. I mean, 2 rounds, and my ears was ringing so hard for 3 days, or hearing, and that blowback, I just was not comfortable. So this particular revolver is a perfect candidate for me for a side gate conversion, which I went with a Curse converter. I've installed it yesterday. It didn't take me long to install it, but there is one issue that I'm not sure at this point, and quite frankly, there's a couple of these little points I'm going to bring up that I wouldn't mind a little input from people. But the timing is just a little off, meaning I'm on half cock right now, and I can't spin this cylinder. Touch on the back of the hammer, and it goes. Now, I can address that, or I can just say, okay, I can live with that, because when I go to run it full cycle, it's locked up perfect. Everything's perfect that way. And I personally, right now, am leaning, and I don't know if I'm talking myself into or out of anything at this point, but I personally don't want to go away from the ability to put my standard cap and ball revolver cylinder, and also you saw it on my stainless, I have a Howells conversion cylinder that fits this as well. So when I look at that or think about that, I go to myself, wouldn't you prefer to be able to go back to cap and ball if you needed to go back to testing, and why throw that off timing just to make this timing that much better? Because at this point, I look at this as not that big of a deal. I can deal with that fairly quickly, and I can't see it, but you know, it's just a matter of closing one eye for me and making sure things are lined up, and go from there to the next cylinder, to the next cylinder. So I haven't really decided 100% what I'm going to do with that. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is, since I decided to turn this into a conversion revolver, I want to build a mate to it. Now, as you can see, I put my own personal touches to it, or we all can agree that this is not necessarily in any way, shape, or form historically correct things I've added to it. Some of it I built myself, others I bought commercially. It's just where I wanted to see this thing go to. But I've been thinking very hard about a mate to this. Originally, I thought about getting another 8-inch version, like I need another Remington in like I need a hole in my head, but another 8-inch version of Uberti, because this is an Uberti target model, 8-inch target model. They do make them. They make them both in stainless and blued steel. In this case, I would prefer blued steel. And I almost went 100% that way and bought one, but I'm not sure it's that important that I stay to the Uberti thing, because I have a 5.5-inch, what they call the Sheriff's model, 5.5-inch Pieta. But here lately, I've been leaning towards more what Pieta calls their large frame, but more traditional 8-inch model. It's not adjustable sights, other than you can adjust them just like any other standard Remington sights. If it's shooting low, you can raise it up, and it nowadays they do come with a even Pieta now is doing it, where they come with a dovetailed front sight, and you can adjust it right and left. Little effort at all. So the adjustment sight, but I can't put my finger on exactly which way I should go, or just convert one that I already have, because as you saw, I own 9 different Remingtons. Why buy another one to do that? And when you look at it that way, my target model Pieta, I don't want to mess with. I don't want to cut a side gate to it. I like it the way it is. And the 5.5-inch model, I rarely pull it out. So it seems to me that that would be the way to kind of go on what I have existing. Anyway, I wanted to actually take a minute to show you that I'm coming to the end of what this project is. I have so many other projects I need to get to, and with my limited energy, I'm not getting them to them as fast as I need to. And I just thought I'd show where I went with this. And of course, you can tell because of my vision issues, I've colored up sights so I can actually pick them out a little bit better. I also tried a 3D printed scope mount on this thing, and it looked like it was going to work great until the barrel heated up and it kind of lost its tensile strength. That was not worth its while. But this is where I believe Remington, when it left the factory, they should have spent a little bit of money to pay for royalties to have a bore-through cylinder, and just from the very beginning when they introduced this. I don't know as I believe it would have ever made it as popular as the Henry, but it certainly would have given it a better chance of making a little money than staying the cap and balls way. Now, with that, I am going to say, if you came here wearing your feelings on your sleeve, looking to get your butt hurt, you probably came to the right place. Thanks for stopping by. So, I'm going to add a little quick addition to the video that you just watched, and see if I can be smart enough to edit it to it. And when I left that video, I indicated that I had a timing issue with this carbine, and let's put it this way. I have a tendency to let myself intimidate myself since my stroke and my vision issues. I don't always trust myself, but I couldn't let it go. I walked in the house and just started investigating, and knew right off from shining some light that it was not a bolt issue, and so I decided to address it, taking care of it. And just so you know, we're here at hammer down, half cock, and we're working the way it should. And again, we lock up at full cock. And the amount of material I needed to move was on the underside of the hand where it was catching the cylinder. So essentially I haven't changed the timing on this really at all. So one issue already addressed. We're working like we should be.